The neon lights of Armac Station flickered against the dark metal walls, casting an eerie glow over the crowded market district. Merchants shouted in 100 different languages, selling everything from rare star metal trinkets to steaming plates of alien food. The air smelled of burning plasma, fried spices, and machine oil, a familiar scent in the outer colonies. Jonas Vance, a human trader, moved through the chaos, his boots clanking against the steel ground. He wasn't here to buy or sell today, just looking for a place to refuel his ship, the Horizon's Edge, before heading to the next system. Then he saw her, a blue-skinned woman wrapped in a ragged cloak, hunched near a dark alleyway. She was watching everything around her with nervous eyes, like a cornered animal waiting for danger. Jonas had traveled across the stars, met all kinds of aliens, but he had never seen someone with skin like hers. Deep blue, almost glowing under the station's lights. Something about her felt wrong, not in a dangerous way, but as if she wasn't supposed to be here. Then trouble came. A group of 3 alien thugs approached her. Their scaled skin and sharp mandibles marked them as Vorak mercenaries, a species known for selling information and people to the highest bidder. Azrin, one of them hissed, their voices like grinding metal. "You're not welcome here." The blue-skinned woman stiffened. "I don't want trouble." "Too late," another Vorak sneered. "Your kind is banned in every civilized system. The bounty on you is enough to buy a warship." Jonas clenched his fists. A bounty. He had heard about the Azrin before, whispers in the black markets, rumors in the trade channels. They were outlaws, but no one ever said why. The Vorak leader grabbed her arm. "Come quietly. We'll make it painless." Jonas didn't think. He just acted. "Let her go." The mercenaries turned, their yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. "This is not your concern, human." Jonas stepped forward, standing between them and the woman. "She doesn't look dangerous to me. How about you back off?" The Vorak leader hissed, exposing rows of sharp teeth. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." Jonas sighed. "I never do." Then he threw a punch. His fist slammed into the Vorak's jaw, sending the alien stumbling backward. The other 2 lunged at him, but Jonas was fast, sidestepping one and slamming his elbow into the other's ribs. The blue-skinned woman took her chance. She twisted free and kicked the Vorak leader in the knee, making him collapse with a growl. "Run," she shouted. Jonas didn't argue. He grabbed her wrist and bolted through the marketplace. Shouts echoed behind them. Merchants and travelers scattered as the 2 ran through the narrow alleys, dodging crates and neon signs. "Who are you?" Jonas panted as they sprinted. "Lyraya," she gasped. "And you just made yourself a wanted man." Jonas smirked. Wouldn't be the first time. Ahead, the docks came into view. Jonas's ship, the Horizon's Edge, sat at the far end, engines humming. If they reached it, they could escape. But the Vorak weren't giving up. More of them appeared, blocking the exit, armed. Lyraya froze, her blue skin glowing faintly in fear. "We're trapped." Jonas tapped his wrist communicator. "Not yet." A second later, the Horizon's Edge's side cannons roared to life, blasting the ground between them and the Vorak. The shockwave sent the mercenaries flying. Jonas grinned. "Move." They rushed onto the ship, and the hatch sealed behind them. "Vance," a voice crackled over the comm. It was Captain Rillick, the station's security officer. "You just took an Azrin aboard. You know that makes you a criminal." Jonas slammed his hand onto the controls, igniting the thrusters. "Yeah, well, guess I'll add that to my list." The Horizon's Edge blasted off, breaking through Armac Station's docking perimeter and vanishing into the void. Inside, Lyraya stared at him, eyes full of disbelief. "You just risked everything for me," she whispered. Jonas shrugged. "Didn't seem fair to let them take you." A long silence. Then Lyraya spoke the words that would change everything. "You don't understand. Helping me means you just made enemies of the entire galaxy." Jonas exhaled. Well, that's going to be a problem. The Horizon's Edge shot through the void of space, its engines burning bright against the darkness. Inside the cockpit, Jonas Vance leaned back in his chair, watching the flashing red alerts on his control panel. All right, he muttered, glancing at the blue-skinned woman beside him. Mind telling me what I just got myself into? Luraya sat on the co-pilot's seat, her glowing blue skin dim under the ship's artificial lights. Her breathing was still uneven from the chase. She looked at Jonas, her golden eyes filled with hesitation. You shouldn't have helped me, she said quietly. Jonas chuckled dryly. Yeah, figured that out already. Suddenly, the ship's warning system beeped. Jonas frowned and pressed a few buttons on the console. A transmission was coming through. Jonas Vance, a deep voice boomed. You are harboring a fugitive. Surrender now, and we might let you live. Jonas sighed. Great. Who are we running from now? Luraya turned pale. That's Commander Xyros. He works for the Galactic Council. Jonas's stomach twisted. The Galactic Council was the most powerful force in the known universe. If they were after Luraya, that meant one thing. This was bigger than just a bounty. Jonas flicked the communication switch. Sorry, I don't take orders from overgrown tin cans. Try again later. You fool, Cyrus growled. You don't understand what she is, what she carries. If you protect her, you're a traitor to every star system. Jonas looked at Luraya, who refused to meet his eyes. He muted the call and turned to her. Okay, time to explain. Now. Luraya hesitated, then took a deep breath. My people, the Ezrin, are not criminals, she said. But the Galactic Council made sure the universe thinks we are. Jonas raised an eyebrow. Why? Luraya placed a small silver data crystal on the console. Because of this, she whispered. Jonas picked it up and turned it over in his fingers. What is it? Luraya's voice was barely audible. The truth. Before Jonas could ask more, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared as laser fire struck the shields. They're firing at us. Jonas growled, grabbing the controls. He banked the ship hard to the left, dodging another blast. On the screen, he saw 2 Galactic Council patrol ships closing in fast. Hang on. He yanked a lever, sending the Horizon's Edge into a barrel roll through an asteroid field. Luraya gripped the seat tightly, her breath caught in her throat. We won't outrun them, she warned. They have faster ships. Jonas smirked. Yeah, but they don't know these asteroids like I do. He twisted the ship into a sharp dive, weaving between massive, floating rocks. One of the patrol ships followed, but its pilot wasn't fast enough. The ship clipped an asteroid, spiraled out of control, and exploded into a fireball. Luraya's eyes widened. That was reckless. Jonas grinned. Yeah, but it worked. The second ship, however, was smarter. It matched Jonas's movements, staying on their tail. Then suddenly, Luraya pressed a button on the console. A hidden turret rose from the ship's side and fired a powerful plasma shot. The patrol ship took a direct hit and veered off, losing control. Jonas blinked. Didn't know you could shoot. Luraya gave him a small, knowing smile. I learned a few things while running for my life. With the threats gone, Jonas set the ship's course for a hidden outpost, a place where he could refuel and get some answers. All right, Jonas said, rubbing his temples. We're safe for now. But I need to know, what's on that crystal that makes you the most wanted person in the galaxy? Luraya looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, the proof that the Galactic Council has been lying to everyone for years. Jonas let out a slow breath. Well, he muttered, guess I really did pick the worst day to play hero. As the Horizon's Edge disappeared into the darkness of space, neither of them knew that their fight was just beginning. The Horizon's Edge glided through the vast darkness of space, heading toward Raxus 7, a small smuggler's moon hidden on the edge of the Galactic Council's reach. The planet was covered in thick clouds of yellow dust, with massive junkyards and dark marketplaces filled with criminals, traders, and rebels. Jonas Vance had been here before. It wasn't safe, but right now, safety wasn't an option. He needed fuel, supplies, and most importantly, answers. Loraya sat beside him, silent, her glowing blue skin dim in the dim cockpit lights. She had been quiet since their escape from the patrol ships. Jonas could tell she was hiding something important. "We land, we get what we need, and we leave," Jonas said, looking at her. "No unnecessary trouble." Loraya nodded but didn't say anything. Jonas sighed and brought the ship down onto a rusted landing platform outside the main city. The moment the engines powered down, the smell of burning fuel and damp metal filled the air. Jonas led the way, moving through the crowded streets of Raxus 7's underworld. Here, no one cared about galactic laws. Credits ruled everything. "We need to find Captain Rill," Jonas said. "He owes me a favor. He might be able to get us new ID codes so the Council stops tracking us." Loraya hesitated. "Can we trust him?" Jonas smirked. "No, but he likes money more than loyalty." "That's good enough." They walked through the market district, past merchants selling black market weapons, illegal tech, and stolen star maps. Creatures from 100 different species moved around them, some talking, others watching with hungry eyes. Jonas kept his hand near his blaster. After a few minutes, they reached a small bar hidden in the ruins of an old space station. A holographic sign flickered above the entrance, displaying the name, the Rusted Star. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the scent of old alcohol. At the far end of the room, Captain Rill, a tall reptilian alien with scurred scales, sat at a table, surrounded by mercenaries and gamblers. Jonas approached, pulling out a small pouch of credits. "Need a favor, Rill." Rill looked up, his golden eyes narrowing. "Jonas Vance, didn't expect to see you here. What's the job?" Jonas nodded toward Loraya. "We need fake IDs and a way off the grid, quick and quiet." Rill's gaze moved to Loraya, and his expression changed. "Azrin," he muttered. A strange mix of fear and greed flickered in his eyes. Jonas didn't like that look. "You can help us or not?" Jonas asked. Rill smirked. "I can, but it'll cost extra." Jonas tossed the pouch of credits onto the table. "That enough?" Rill picked it up, weighed it in his clawed hand, and nodded. "Meet me at Dock 12 in an hour. I'll have everything ready." Jonas didn't trust him, but there was no choice. He and Loraya left the bar and headed back toward the ship. "We should leave now," Loraya said. "I don't trust him." Jonas sighed. "Neither do I, but we need those ID codes. Just stay close." But they never made it to the ship. As they walked through a narrow alley, the sound of heavy footsteps surrounded them. Jonas spun around, pulling his blaster, but it was too late. Armed mercenaries stepped out of the shadows, blocking their escape, and standing behind them was Captain Rill, smiling. "Sorry, Jonas," Rill said, flipping the pouch of credits in his hand. "Turns out the bounty on your friend here is worth 10 times more than what you paid me." Jonas clenched his jaw. "Should have known you'd sell us out." Rill shrugged. "Nothing personal, just business." The mercenaries raised their weapons. Loraya stepped closer to Jonas, her voice calm but firm. "We're not going down without a fight." Jonas smirked. "Didn't plan on it." Before the mercenaries could react, Jonas grabbed a smoke grenade from his belt and threw it to the ground. A thick cloud of white smoke exploded, blinding their enemies. "Run!" Jonas shouted. They sprinted through the smoke, dodging between crates and rusted metal structures. Laser blasts shot past them, missing by inches. Jonas pulled out his communicator and shouted, "Horizon's Edge, emergency takeoff sequence." Now, the ship's engines roared to life, the docking ramp lowering as they ran. Loraya jumped first, landing inside, and Jonas followed, spinning midair and firing a shot at a fuel tank nearby. The explosion sent fire and smoke blasting through the docks, forcing the mercenaries to dive for cover. Jonas slammed the hatch closed as the ship lifted off, speeding away from Raxus 7. Inside, both of them collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard. Lyraya turned to Jonas. "You almost got us killed." Jonas grinned. "Yeah, but we're not dead, are we?" She shook her head. "We can't keep running forever." Jonas exhaled, looking at the stars ahead. "Then we find a way to fight back." Lyraya hesitated, then pulled out the data crystal again. "There's only one way to do that. We need to show the truth to the galaxy." Jonas looked at the crystal, then at her. "Then let's do it." As the horizon's edge disappeared into hyperspace, Jonas knew one thing. This was no longer just about survival. This was war. The horizon's edge sped through hyperspace, leaving Raxus 7 far behind. Inside the ship, Jonas Vance sat in the cockpit, staring at the data crystal Lyraya had given him. The small device looked harmless, but it was the reason half the galaxy wanted them dead. Lyraya stood beside him, her blue skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. She had been silent since they escaped Raxus 7, but Jonas knew she was waiting for him to ask the question. Finally, he sighed. "All right, time to tell me everything. What's on this thing that makes the Galactic Council want you dead?" Lyraya hesitated, then took a deep breath. "The truth." Jonas rolled his eyes. "Yeah, I figured that much. But what kind of truth?" Lyraya sat down across from him, her golden eyes full of pain and determination. "My people, the Azrin, were once part of the Galactic Council," she began. "We were diplomats, healers, and scholars. We never went to war, never conquered anyone. But we had something the Council feared." Jonas leaned forward. "Which is?" Lyraya's voice dropped to a whisper. "We can sense lies." Jonas blinked. "Wait, what?" She nodded. "It's not magic. It's part of our biology. Our nervous system picks up small changes in body temperature, heartbeat, even the way people breathe. We can tell when someone is hiding something. That's why the Council trusted us for centuries, to ensure no corruption existed in their ranks." Jonas frowned. "That sounds useful. Why would they want to destroy your people?" Lyraya clenched her fists. "Because the Council is corrupt. For years, they've been stealing resources, enslaving weaker species, and secretly funding wars. When my people discovered the truth, we tried to expose them." Jonas's stomach twisted. "Let me guess. They didn't like that." Lyraya shook her head. "They branded us as traitors, spread lies that we were dangerous, that we wanted to overthrow them. They sent fleets to wipe us out. Millions of Azrin were killed. The survivors went into hiding." Jonas exhaled sharply. "And this data crystal, it proves everything." Lyraya nodded. "It contains classified Council documents, secret transactions, even recordings of high-ranking officials admitting to their crimes. If we can broadcast it across the galaxy, the people will see the truth." Jonas ran a hand through his hair. "No wonder they put a bounty on you. You're holding a death sentence for the entire Council." Lyraya looked at him, her expression serious. "I need your help, Jonas. You've seen what they're willing to do. We can't fight them alone. But if we get this information to the right people, we have a chance." Jonas sighed. "You're asking me to go up against the most powerful government in the galaxy. That's basically suicide." Lyraya didn't look away. "I know, but if we do nothing, more innocent people will die." Jonas stared at the data crystal, turning it over in his fingers. He wasn't a hero. He was a smuggler, a traitor, a man who usually stayed out of trouble. But he had seen how the Vorak mercenaries treated her. He had seen how Captain Rill betrayed them for money. He had nearly died protecting her. And he couldn't walk away now. "All right," he said finally. "Where do we take this?" Lyraya's shoulders relaxed slightly, but her eyes remained serious. "Varkas 9. It's an old Azrin colony, abandoned after the war. There's a deep space relay station there, one of the few places the Council hasn't been able to shut down. Jonas nodded. Sounds easy enough. Loraya shook her head. It won't be. The Council probably knows we escaped Raxus 7. They'll be looking for us. As if on cue, the ship's warning alarm blared. Jonas snapped his head toward the radar. A fleet of Council ships had just appeared on their tail. They found us, Loraya shouted. Jonas cursed under his breath and grabbed the controls. Hold on. He yanked the ship into a sharp dive, avoiding a barrage of laser fire. The horizon's edge shook violently as energy blasts grazed the shields. They're locking onto us, Loraya warned. Jonas gritted his teeth. Not for long. He pulled the ship into a dense asteroid field, weaving between massive floating rocks. The Council ships followed, but Jonas knew how to fly through tight spaces better than they did. One of the Council ships tried to match his maneuver, but it was too slow. It smashed into an asteroid, exploding into a fiery burst. One down, Jonas shouted. The other two ships kept chasing. They were getting closer. Lorea's eyes flickered toward the weapons system. I have an idea. Jonas glanced at her. I like ideas. Lorea quickly typed something into the ship's navigation panel. Suddenly, a series of energy mines detached from the horizon's edge, floating behind them. The pursuing ships didn't notice in time. Boom! Both enemy ships were caught in the explosion, their engines failing as they spun out of control. Jonas laughed breathlessly. Remind me never to underestimate you. Lorea smirked. Noted. Jonas checked the radar. We're clear. For now. Lorea nodded. Then let's get to Varkus 9 before they find us again. Jonas pushed the thrusters to full speed, setting their course. As the ship shot through space, Jonas glanced at Lorea. They had just barely escaped. But next time, the Council wouldn't make the same mistake. And if they were going to survive, they needed more than just luck. The horizon's edge streaked through space, heading toward Varkus 9, a forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy. Jonas Vance sat at the controls, eyes locked on the rust-colored planet growing larger on the screen. Beside him, Lorea sat with a tense expression, gripping the data crystal in her hands. This was it, their only chance to expose the Galactic Council's lies. Jonas exhaled and glanced at her. Once we land, how do we send the data? Lorea straightened. There's an old Azran relay station hidden underground. It still has a functioning transmission system. If we connect the crystal, it will send the truth to every major news network and independent colony. Jonas nodded. Sounds simple enough, which means it won't be. Lorea gave him a small smile, but her golden eyes held worry. The Council won't let us do this without a fight. Jonas smirked. They can try. A dead planet awakens. As the ship entered the thin atmosphere of Varkus 9, Jonas saw nothing but dust storms and rocky wastelands. The planet had once been a thriving Ezran colony, but after the Council's purge, it became a ghost world. Jonas guided the ship toward a jagged mountain range, where Lorea said the relay station was hidden. Just as they prepared to land, the ship's alarm blared. Lorea's face paled. They're here. Jonas checked the radar. A massive Galactic Council battleship had entered orbit. It was flanked by a squadron of sleek, silver fighters, all heading straight for them. Guess they didn't forget about us, Jonas muttered. Lorea gripped her seat. We have to land before they take us down. Jonas yanked the controls, dodging a barrage of laser fire. The horizon's edge dove toward the mountains, skimming just above the jagged peaks. Hold on, Jonas shouted as he spotted a narrow canyon leading to a hidden valley. The ship banked sharply, diving into the canyon just as the enemy fighters opened fire. Rocks shattered around them, explosions shaking the ship. Jonas gritted his teeth. We're almost there. The relay station came into view, a massive half-buried structure with a towering satellite dish covered in sand. Jonas slammed the ship down onto the rocky ground, barely avoiding a crash. Move. Defending the truth, Jonas and Loraya rushed out of the ship, running toward the relay station's entrance. A metallic door was half broken, rusted with age. Loraya pressed her hands to a glowing panel, using the last of the Azeran access codes. With a deep hiss, the door slid open. They raced inside, down a dark corridor filled with flickering lights and broken equipment. "Where's the control room?" Jonas panted. Loraya pointed ahead. "There." They burst into the main chamber, where an ancient console sat beneath a giant screen. Dust covered everything, but the system was still active. Loraya rushed forward, inserting the data crystal into the console. "It's uploading," she said. "In 2 minutes, the truth will reach the entire galaxy." Jonas turned to the doorway, gripping his blaster. "Then we just have to survive for 2 minutes." Outside, the Council's forces arrived. The final battle. A dozen armored soldiers stormed toward the relay station, energy rifles raised. Jonas took cover behind a console and fired first, taking down 2 enemies before they could react. Loraya ducked beside him. "They won't stop coming." Jonas smirked. "Then we make them regret coming in the first place." The battle was fast and brutal. Jonas took down another soldier before a blast grazed his shoulder, making him wince. Loraya suddenly raised her hands, her blue skin glowing brighter than ever. A shockwave of invisible energy pulsed through the room. The soldiers stumbled, clutching their heads as their minds flooded with overwhelming emotions: fear, guilt, hesitation. Jonas stared. What was that? Loraya panted heavily. "Azeran aren't just good at sensing lies. We can project emotions too." Jonas grinned. "You've been holding out on me." Before Loraya could answer, Commander Xyros entered the chamber. The tall, armored figure raised a heavy rifle, his red visor glowing. "Enough," Xyros growled. "Step away from the console, or you die." Loraya stood her ground. "It's too late. The data is already uploading." Xyros sneered. "Then I'll make sure no one is alive to see it." He fired. Jonas tackled Loraya out of the way just in time. The blast shattered the console behind them, sparks flying. Jonas rolled onto his feet, aimed, and fired. His shot hit Xyros in the chest, knocking the commander back. But Xyros wasn't down yet. He raised his gun for another shot, when a thunderous explosion shook the entire station. The transmission had gone through. The truth was out. The aftermath. Outside, in orbit, the Council's battleships suddenly stopped attacking. Across the galaxy, people saw the evidence, the proof of the Council's corruption, their crimes, their lies. Civil unrest began. Fleets turned against their leaders. The galaxy was changing. Inside the relay station, Xyros staggered back, his communicator crackling with panicked voices. Jonas smirked. "Guess you lost." Xyros clenched his fists, rage burning in his eyes. But he knew it was over. With a final glare, he activated a recall beacon and vanished in a burst of light, retreating with his remaining forces. Jonas let out a deep breath, then turned to Loraya. "It's done," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Jonas grinned. "Told you we'd make it." Loraya gave him a small smile, then looked up at the stars above. For the first time in years, she felt hope. The fight wasn't over. But now, they weren't alone. The horizon's edge hovered over the ruined landscape of Arcus 9, its hull scarred from battle. Inside, Jonas Vance leaned against the cockpit chair, watching the distant sky. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. The truth about the Galactic Council's corruption had been broadcast across the galaxy. Millions had seen the evidence. Civilizations were already questioning their leaders. The Council's power was crumbling. But Jonas knew it wouldn't be that easy. Beside him, Loraya was quiet, staring at the data console where the transmission had been sent. Her blue skin shimmered faintly, but she looked exhausted. "We did it," she whispered. Jonas smirked. "Yeah, So why doesn't it feel like we won? The Council's next move. A sudden beeping alert echoed through the ship. Jonas frowned and checked the monitor. His stomach tightened. "They're still coming," he muttered. Laraya's face paled. "The Council's fleet." Jonas nodded. "More ships, bigger ones, and they're heading straight for us." Laraya clenched her fists. "Even after the truth is out, they still want to silence us." Jonas ran a hand through his hair. "They're desperate. If they can kill us now, they can still spin the story their way. Say it was all fake." Laraya looked at him, determination in her golden eyes. "Then we can't let them win." Jonas exhaled. "Agreed. But we're one ship against an armada, calling for backup." Jonas pulled up the ship's long-range communicator. He scrolled through old contacts, smugglers, mercenaries, rebels. He needed help, and fast. "Come on, somebody owes me a favor," he muttered. Finally, he found a name. Captain Darius Red, leader of a ragtag fleet of independent traders and ex-soldiers. Jonas sent a message. "Darius, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I need backup. The Council is sending a fleet to erase us. If you ever wanted to make a real difference, now's the time." Seconds passed, then minutes. No response. Jonas clenched his jaw. "We're on our own." Laraya placed a hand on his arm. "Then we make this count." Jonas sighed. "Hope you're ready for the dumbest plan I've ever had." A reckless plan. The Council's warships entered the planet's orbit, their cannons charging up. Jonas took the horizon's edge and flew straight toward them. Laraya stared in disbelief. "Jonas, what are you doing?" Jonas grinned, making them panic. He pushed the ship to full speed, weaving between blaster fire. Alarms blared as their shields weakened, but Jonas didn't slow down. "Come on," he muttered, eyes locked on the massive flagship in the center of the fleet. Laraya realized what he was doing. "You're baiting them." Jonas nodded. "They're expecting us to run. Instead, we charge straight in. That'll make them hesitate." The gamble worked. The enemy fleet hesitated, breaking formation as they scrambled to target a ship that wasn't afraid to die. But they weren't safe yet. "Jonas, we won't last much longer," Laraya warned as the ship shook violently from enemy fire. Jonas gritted his teeth. "Then I hope my message got through." Reinforcements arrive. Just as the horizon's edge's shields collapsed, a sudden explosion ripped through space. The Council's left flank was under attack. Jonas's communicator crackled. "Jonas, you crazy idiot. You owe me for this." Jonas laughed in relief. "Darius, took you long enough." Darius's fleet, a dozen heavily modified pirate ships, old war cruisers, and smugglers' vessels, had arrived, launching a full-scale counterattack. The Council's fleet, already shaken by the transmission leak, was caught off guard. "We can't win this fight," Laraya said, "but we can make them retreat." Jonas nodded. "Let's give them something to be afraid of." The turning point. Jonas maneuvered the horizon's edge behind Darius's fleet, using their ships as cover while taking precise shots at the enemy's weak spots. The battle was chaos. Blasts of energy lit up the darkness, ships exploded in fiery wrecks, and Council forces began to break ranks. One of the Council's commanders signaled a retreat. They had lost too many ships, and with the galaxy turning against them, they couldn't risk a full-scale war. The enemy fleet began to withdraw, their ships jumping into hyperspace one by one. Jonas leaned back in his seat, laughing breathlessly. "We did it," Laraya whispered. Jonas smirked. "Yeah, but they'll be back. The Council isn't going down without a fight." Laraya's golden eyes burned with determination. "Then we fight. Not just for us, but for every world they've lied to." Jonas glanced at her, then at the stars beyond. He had started this as a simple smuggler, just looking to get by. Now, he was part of something much bigger. He had chosen a side, and he wasn't backing down. The horizon's edge floated silently in the dark expanse of space. The battle was over. The enemy had retreated, and for the first time in a long while, Jonas Vance allowed himself to breathe. He glanced at Lariah, who was staring at the distant stars. Her blue skin shimmered softly under the dim lights of the cockpit. She looked exhausted, but in her golden eyes, there was something else. Hope. "They're gone," Jonas muttered, leaning back in his seat. "For now." Lariah nodded. "The Council lost this battle, but they still control most of the galaxy. They won't stop trying to silence the truth." Jonas smirked. "Let them try. We're not alone anymore." The galaxy reacts. The transmission from Farkas 9 had changed everything. Across the galaxy, people were waking up to the Council's corruption. Protests had begun in major cities. Entire star systems were questioning their loyalty. Some military officers refused to follow orders, unwilling to fight for a government that had lied to them. Jonas pulled up the latest news feeds on his holoscreen. Reports from dozens of colonies flooded in. Civil unrest, high-ranking officials resigning, rogue fleets forming. "This is bigger than we thought," Lariah whispered. "People are listening." Jonas grinned. "Guess you started a revolution." Lariah exhaled, as if she still couldn't believe it. "We still need to be careful. The Council won't fall overnight, and they'll be hunting us harder than ever now." Jonas chuckled. "What's life without a little danger?" Lariah gave him a look, but there was amusement in her eyes, a promise to fight. Suddenly, the horizon's edge's communicator buzzed. Jonas pressed a button, and Darius Red appeared on the holoscreen. The rugged, scar-faced captain smirked. "Jonas," Darius said, shaking his head, "you just made things very interesting in the galaxy." Jonas grinned, figured it was time for a little excitement. Darius leaned forward. "I've got contacts all over, people who are tired of the Council's rule. You give the word, and we start hitting them where it hurts." Lariah crossed her arms. "You mean war?" Darius shrugged. "Call it what you want, but the Council's forces won't give up power willingly. They'll try to crush this movement before it spreads. If we don't fight back, we lose everything." Jonas glanced at Lariah, then back at Darius. "We fight," Jonas said firmly. Darius smirked. "Good, because a lot of people are looking at you two as leaders now, whether you like it or not." Jonas blinked. "Wait, leaders? No, I'm just a smuggler who got dragged into this." Darius chuckled. "Not anymore. Vance, you and Lariah are the faces of this rebellion. Like it or not, you just became legends." The screen blinked off, leaving Jonas staring at the dark cockpit. Lariah turned to him. "Are you ready for this?" Jonas let out a slow breath. "No, but let's do it anyway." Lariah smiled. The war begins. The horizon's edge blasted away from Farkas 9, disappearing into the stars. They weren't running anymore. They were leading the charge. Across the galaxy, the flames of rebellion had been lit, and Jonas Vance, a simple smuggler, was now at the center of it all. The end, or the beginning.